I remember when Xbox first got announced, and it was like Bill Gates and The Rock were up there, and like Bill Gates was up there like proudly talking about how they'd have like more sexual games and experiences and stuff, and like more edgy because of it was like 2001, of course. Like, yeah, it was just that time frame too.
Oh, that's right? Amazing.
Yep.
I can't.
And I'm like, this thing's a joke.
They got in early on The Rock, I gotta say.
They did. They got in very early.
They got in when he was like pure wrestling fame.
He was just a wrestling guy. Maybe had like dipped his toe into like really crappy movies at most.
Yeah.
Like, but was still like a normal sized human being and not this just like massive like walking muscle man.
Yeah, he's a joke, man. I hate him so much. I'm sure he's like an all right guy, but he just seems so like it's probably just the nature of like he's so famous now that like he can't do anything to rub anyone the wrong way. So he's like or he can if he wants to, but he chooses not to. So he's like I'm gonna be like the spitting image of like clean cut
neutrality.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah, like never gonna offend
vanilla
anyone.
Ice cream.
Yeah, and not that I want him to go around offending everyone, but I just like, he just seems like he's not even he has no personality anymore. He's just like been wiped it clean.
His personality is muscles.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery.
Hey folks.
And you're stuck with just the two of us this week. Right. We had John and I last time, and now Randall's here to talk some video games.
Some duos.
Yeah, got a couple 2-packs for you. But yeah, I guess it's probably been probably about a month or so since this came out, and since the 20th anniversary of the Xbox. I guess Xbox in general.
Yeah.
And Randall, you've been kind of celebrating that anniversary at least to some degree. You're the only one of us with the new edition of the console. So
yeah, and like also I did have an Xbox back in the day. Got one relatively soon-ish. Was definitely mostly a GameCube guy in that era, but got an Xbox because I had my eye on Halo, and specifically Halo 2, because I'm pretty sure that was the first one that had online multiplayer through Xbox Live, maybe.
That sounds right, and if it wasn't, it was definitely like the one that blew up for sure. Like that was the one I played with my brother online, and he had the Xbox, I had the game. Actually, no, he had the game. He had all the systems in that era. I don't think I had any of them. He had the PS2 and the Xbox and the GameCube. I had all the retro stuff.
Hey, by the time I met you had a pretty good GameCube collection going already, though. So
I had the games. The games we definitely had a shared collection of games. But yeah, I don't know what it was. Maybe I was too old for video games at the time. But yeah, I had to borrow his systems whenever I wanted to play that era, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's. I mean, that was a great era, though, and like, man,
the heyday.
Especially if you could include Dreamcast in that era too. Like,
and I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I think it's almost like it kind of kickstarted that era, and maybe
I think so.
For Sega's sake, maybe a little bit too soon. They were almost just a little too early to that curve. But
just needed that DVD drive, baby.
Yeah, honestly, that how much of a even however many years later, I mean, that was the deal breaker for me getting a PlayStation 3 over an Xbox 360.
Right.
I was like, I want the Blu-ray player.
Yep.
Like like that extra edition was enough to be like, okay, I can justify getting this video game system that I don't really need and this Blu-ray player that I also don't really need all at once, instead of buying both things individually. And I think, the PlayStation 2, I mean, there's a reason why that system just took off.
Because in both instances, like at the time of the PS2, DVD players were hella expensive, and then at the time of the PS3, Blu-ray players were crazy expensive.
They were like $1,000.
Oh, yeah.
Like I got a PlayStation, the PlayStation 4, whatever model I got, or PlayStation 3, I'm sorry, at the time was, I think it was $400 was the model I got, and a Blu-ray player was like $1,000 at the time.
Like
so it was
less than $600-700 for a
it was like a no-brainer to get a place. Like if you wanted a Blu-ray player and you played games ever in your life, it was a no-brainer. Even if you didn't play games, it was a no-brainer.
It was. I think, I mean, we worked at Best Buy around that time frame, and I feel like there were some people that were like, oh yeah, Blu-ray player.
Like the only other thing would be the space. Like I do remember the other like Blu-ray players being much smaller than the PS3, the original model, a little bit sleeker. Especially. Yeah. But that's the only other thing. I mean, otherwise it was a damn good Blu-ray player too.
Yes. Which, original Xbox, also a DVD player, although you had to buy the little remote adapter thingy guy. But I never had a problem doing that. And you could put it in like the controller slot 4, so that was fine too. So didn't get in the way of your controllers. But had good times on the old Xbox. Played a lot of NFL 2K5 and a lot of other games like that back in the day and in college and stuff. But all that being said, I've always had some affinity for Xbox, and got the Series X. And because I have the Series X, I jumped into the Halo Infinite multiplayer that just dropped relatively recently as the time of this recording. And man, it feels just like playing Halo back in the day. It like really feels like that, but like just kind of upgraded with little like nips and tucks, but in like obviously the visual quality. And
so it's a full blown, like it's not just like this, these are upscaled, like it's a full blown kind of remaster remake situation.
New game really, but like just the same concepts of those old Halo multiplayer experiences. Like ultimately Halo Infinite is going to be a brand new like full campaign Halo, like like this is going to be the big game for Xbox when it comes out, which should be pretty soon, the single player, but they decided to release the multiplayer, which is free to play, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. I had no idea.
Yeah, I think you still might need Xbox Live to get access to it, of course, but free to download, free to play, and that also means that there's a huge player base on Xbox for this. And I just I booted that up on the first night. I'm like, I have to check this out. Like, I wasn't like the world's like most massive Halo fan, but I always enjoyed my time with this series. So I'm like, why not? I've got everything to do this, and found myself like, oh no, maybe I like Halo more than I thought I did. Like this is, I used to. There was a time back in that like 360 PS3 era where I played quite a bit of like Call of Duty 4 and some of those type of experiences online quite a bit. And kind of had fallen away from like the Halo 3s, Halo 4 type of time frame. But Halo Infinite might have me kind of coming back and playing the campaign, especially because it's going to be a Game Pass thing, obviously being a first party Microsoft. And like it just feels right. It feels exactly like I thought it felt 20 years ago, which means it's a perfect update, because obviously I'm sure it's clunkier if I were to pop in an old disc in my original Xbox and play that now.
Right.
But that's how, like, in my mind, the nostalgia, it's like a perfect match. I think it plays great, and there's like a whole bunch of different modes, like capture the flag, or just like whichever team gets like 50 kills first, or and it just you have the Warthog, you can jump in on the back, and one guy's shooting the gun while another guy's driving and running over people, and just playing stupid, and it's just good. It's a fun time.
There's something to be said too about like jumping into a new experience, but with that sense of familiarity where you're like, okay, I kind of know what's going on. Like, there might be a few new things here and there. I might have to learn a new mechanic or whatever. And one thing I'm thinking is, like, I know I've obviously mentioned on the podcast all the time, I don't play a ton of first person shooters. Yeah. And I do remember in particular when me and my brother, I would play a lot of Halo 2 with him. And he would just mop the floor with me. I mean, I couldn't even come close to holding my own, but it still felt cool to like land a sticky grenade and like just those little bits of satisfaction where it's like, okay, it's like I'm getting enough. I'm having enough fun where I can keep playing this game. But I did find that, like, especially with the original Xbox controller with those little like white and black nub buttons, like that made controlling a first person shooter even more confusing to me. So I do feel like playing one with a proper 2 shoulder buttons and or the bumpers and the triggers, and like kind of being able to, I'm sure, map the controls however I see fit. Like I feel like I could probably get a little more comfortable, and I've just played a little more, first person shooters between now and when Halo 2 came out. So.
Totally. And you just have that much more like game under your belt, between now and then, where it probably wouldn't be that hard for you to pick up now comparatively. And like even like the third person stuff, like the controls of that translates pretty well over back into first person. I think if you like with the action stuff you played, it probably wouldn't be as hard as you think to get into it. You bringing up the white and black buttons, like that just takes me back to where like I'm sure you, because you've got a little bit of a golf background too, probably played Tiger Woods during that time.
Yep.
The white and black buttons would add like an extra spin on it that you could kind of like jam on those buttons. Like I just have, for whatever reason, a distinct memory of that and like those white and black buttons. And again, playing in college, playing whatever Tiger Woods was out during that time.
It's funny you mentioned that because I don't remember. I think this would, because at least the one I played, it was Tiger Woods 99, but this was on the original PlayStation. Whoa. So I'm guessing this was not. And I still I played many Tiger Woods, iterations beyond that. But I remember in particular Tiger Woods 99, like I think you just I was playing on PlayStation, so I'm pretty sure it was just the D-pad to like control the spin.
Right.
But I mean, you could pretty much steer the ball in midair. Like they really they were really generous with the spin. Like it wasn't just like, let me add a little backspin and get that ball to bite a little bit on the green. It was like, let me put this thing in reverse. And like, I mean, more side to side, but I mean, you could truly steer the ball in midair. It was so awesome.
Yep. That little backspin is everything.
Oh yeah, that's what the new Mario Golf's missing. I mean, it's got backspin, but
among other things, obviously.
Maybe one day. Every now and then, I still look at the cartridge and I'm like, maybe I'll put it back in and give it a chance. They've added a few new courses or a couple new courses, but maybe someday.
Yeah,
maybe someday. But I'd honestly rather play Tiger Woods 99.
Yeah,
at least I'd get a good laugh steering the ball. So
and look back and see what those graphics look like now. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty exciting because I honestly, when I saw Halo Infinite, I was under the impression, I guess I didn't even know it was like a new solo campaign. I kind of thought they just like kind of released like here's the Halo Infinite collection is kind of what I took it as.
It's that's the Master Chief collection.
Yeah, that's what in my head I was like, didn't they already do this before?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, they're just jumping the gun. Like I feel like Naughty Dog kind of did that with some of the Uncharted multiplayer that kind of released beforehand, or maybe it was with Last of Us.
That sounds familiar. Yeah, I think you're right. They did do something like that, I think.
Or maybe it was with like the some of those Uncharted like DLCs or like those expansion pack smaller games that they made.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I remember DJ saying something about the online modes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think he liked that quite a bit in the later Uncharted games in particular.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm into it. I'm like, ooh, maybe I like Halo more than I thought. Maybe I need to like play this campaign, and then like I already had the Master Chief collection from like a ton of time ago when I had bought it randomly. So, and they've just continued to like patch that to make that a quality experience. I'm like, oh, I might have a lot of stuff to go through here. Yeah, that's not so bad.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Good to hear, because I don't think it's not Bungie anymore, right? Involved with like making Halo.
No, it's not. Which I don't even remember who's developing this latest one. That's how out of the loop I am these days with that stuff.
Yeah, same here. I just knew, I was like, I know Bungie, I don't even think made the last one either. So, I mean,
343 Industries.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like it's in good hands.
Oh,
so it's good to hear that it's like kind of just like, okay, it's more of what you loved. And if you loved it, then you'll be happy to see what's here. But I'd be curious too, because I know those games really shined in like the co-op campaign.
Oh
too.
yeah,
I mean, just the regular solo campaign, but I know you could play co-op, and that was like I know a ton of friends who did that. Many a time over. So
yes, I'd love to do something like that too. Actually, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, with Game Pass, we should give it a try. Yeah,
that'd be sweet.
Yeah, I'd be down. Yeah, I'd be down. I haven't played since Halo 2. I haven't booted one up, so I'd be
get
down.
Some more experience, and I'll help carry you through that too, potentially.
Yeah, I'd need the help for sure. But real quick, I guess while we're talking a little multiplayer, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to I really haven't played a ton of this game just yet, and I've sadly only been able to play it single player because it's the multiplayer is only couch co-op.
Okay,
or I should say couch competitive, because it's more like it's like up to 4 players. And if you've ever played the Monkey Ball games, and in particular, I want to say it was in Super Monkey Ball 2 for sure. I want to say the original Super Monkey Ball as well.
Might have been.
On GameCube. But I know I played a lot of Super Monkey Ball 2 at a friend's house on GameCube.
Oh, yeah.
And we would always play, in particular, Monkey Target over and over, which was basically, and we played this at your place a lot too, Randall, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day, at least once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
And you basically, if you're not familiar with Monkey Ball, you're literally a character in a ball that, or a monkey in a ball, and you roll down a ramp in this particular game mode and kind of launch yourself. And then the ball would kind of open up and like act as like kind of a glider or a parachute.
Kind of like pilot wingsy that way.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this game definitely just kind of almost like just leans into that mini game mode. And I think I said the name of the game, but if I didn't, it's called Bonito Days.
Nice.
And it's got like a really charming, really lovely art style, and I guess just presentation in general. Like the soundtrack is amazing. Like there's a few tracks with vocals here and there, just this like really chill, like almost like calypso, like islandy vibes. And like the game is like very much like, and in Monkey Target too, you're typically like kind of launching out over like the water, and you're sailing and trying to land on like these targets. It's like it almost reminds me of like something that would be on like a wacky like game show where like the contestants are like trying to, or like gladiators or something, but more of like a crazy version of that.
Yep.
But essentially this game, like, and I will say the only thing that's a little jarring at first is the controls, because when you're on the ground, you are like in this kind of rolled up, you're just this little like fish creature that, which it can't swim. So I guess it's not a fish, but it looks like a flying fish, and you are in a ball form when you start out the level. And some of them are like, kind of like Monkey Target, just like a ramp that you roll down and launch yourself, and then you just glide around and fly on the target. But some of them are like a little bit longer of a stage where maybe it is more like a pilot wings thing, where you're like almost like, or even like almost like a Mario Kart, and that's like even a good comparison too, because like the stages or whatever are kind of broken up into cups, where you pick like the herb cup, and then there'll be 5 courses that you need to go through, and you get 3 attempts on each course to basically land on the target and get the highest points you can get. But there's like collectibles, little hearts around that you can fly around and collect to get more points, or rings that you can fly through for like a score multiplier.
I love that stuff.
And then there's like a few of the stages that are more like, they're not a race per se, but they're like, they have a little bit longer of a time limit, because usually you have about 60 seconds, which is plenty of time to go make it to the target on any given run. But then some of them are maybe like 120 seconds, and there'll be like a lot of speed boosters around midair. So like you're not actually going to run out of steam. You're actually just going to be flying around and collecting as many of the hearts and sweets and collectibles as you can. Okay. And it's literally just about getting the high score. Like at the end, if you're just playing single player, like there's no one to compete against, so it just says I win at the end of every time I play a run. But even the fact that I continue to fire this game up, like I keep finding myself like it's been like my go-to like time waster game. Like for example, I was like, I got about a half an hour to kill before we record tonight. So like I'm going to play one circuit basically of the Bonito Days, and like just something about like the presentation, the art style. Like it's got this really like bright, like pastel, low poly kind of style, but it like, I don't know, like it's nowhere near as like zany as something like Katamari, but it's got that kind of energy to it.
And it sounds like perfectly pick up and play that way, like you're saying. Like 1-2 minute runs, everything's like colorful and fun and like vibrant, and kind of like doesn't take itself too seriously. And the high score elements, so there's not too much depth to it. But it sounds perfect for a multiplayer setup that way too, like you're saying. That sounds great. Yeah, and even like the tutorial itself is like, it's literally you click it on like on the title screen, you click tutorial, and it's just like almost like not even a slideshow. It just shows like a few still images, like kind of dancing around on the screen, like almost like a Yoshi's Island style. You know how like the crayon or like the drawings kind of bounce and dance a little bit. Yeah. Like it's kind of like that style. And even the visuals do that, even though the game's in 3D, it kind of has a little bit of that like texture to it. Mm-hmm. But the only thing I'll say, and I think I started this thought earlier and didn't finish it, but when you're on the ground and when you're not in the air, your instinct is that you would use the right stick to control the camera, but you actually have to use the shoulder buttons to kind of like turn the camera left and right. Yeah. But once you're airborne, the camera kind of locks behind you, and that's like what you're spending the majority of the time
doing in this game. Like you're flying around and gliding, and you can do the thing too. Like it's really momentum based, so you got to kind of like dip down and fly back up to pick up just a little more steam. Like you can't you can't really you can't like extend your flying time by a massive amount, but you can definitely like, let me eke this out just a little further.
It's not quite like Mario World Cape status where infinite flight. Yeah, not quite there, but yeah, it feels really nice. It takes just a little getting used to. Yeah. To the point where like again, I think it like the first level it started me off on was like a really heavy, like it did have a little ground based segment before you launch off the ramp. Yeah. So I was like, oh, these controls are so weird. So like I would just say, just stick with it for a second. Like if you feel like it's a little off, because I don't think it lets you tweak the controls, but just give it a chance, try a few more levels, and you'll get the hang of it. I think it's pretty quick to pick up, and I do love how the tutorial again is just like, hey, here's a screen, here's how to play, and again, there's just the sense of fun. Like even instead of telling you to press a button, it tells you to pat the button. Like it just, I don't know. It just like, it reminds me of even like Fogs is another good game of like that really like just fun, charming, bright, colorful. Not taken too seriously.
And multiplayer. So a lot of fun, really, especially if you have like friends up to 4 players. Really think this one's, and again, the name is Bonito Days, just because I feel like I kind of talked in circles and probably said Monkey Target more than I said Bonito Days there. So
good comparison though.
Yeah, definitely. But I know, Randall, you and I from there, we're going to kind of continue on some of our Game Boy discussion from a couple weeks ago. And we kind of dove into, and I was just editing that episode the other day. I was like, man, I was a little harsh on these Mario Land games.
You were very harsh. I had to do everything I could to protect them.
I know. You saved the day a little. And I still stand by. I stand by most of my comments. But we have kind of continued on from, again, playing the Super Mario Land and Super Mario Land 2.
Yes.
To moving on to technically Super Mario Land 3 with Wario Land. And then we've also kind of dabbled a little bit with Donkey Kong on Game Boy as well. Donkey Kong 94, I think a lot of people know it as. Which I had personally never played up until now. Actually, I'd never played either of these up until now, other than I might have played a little bit of Wario Land at some point when I very first bought the cartridge. But
I wasn't too far off from where you were. Like I had dabbled in both of these games, but I never was like, I'm going to sit here and like, this is the game I'm playing. Like it was never that. It was like, let's play a few levels and kind of get a gist of what this is and then move on to something else type of thing.
Yeah, I think once I got both of these in like more of like my collecting days of like, I didn't get them when I had my Game Boy and was playing it all the time.
Same.
So I think, so I got it at a time where I was barely ever playing my Game Boy or Super Game Boy or even having my retro stuff hooked up readily available. So it's like, I'm just not firing up those things all the time. If I am playing retro, it's probably the Super Nintendo or something. So I'm just never really took the time to play these, and kind of even forgot, like in my head, I kind of had thought Wario Land 2 was Super Mario Land 3, like like I just had kind of like erased that Wario Land, like the original, existed. So I was kind of really excited to go back because I was like, oh man, there's like a whole extra Wario game that I kind of totally forgot about. And really think, pretty much all the gripes I had about Super Mario Land, and in particular the gripes I had about Super Mario Land 2 with like kind of the sprites being super huge and at least with the way I tend to play Mario games, where I'm just kind of trying to run the whole time and keep like the natural kind of finesse of controlling Mario, just kind of trying to keep that momentum going all the time. It seems like, and this could maybe not be the case. I don't know. I don't even know if it was the same team, but it seems like for this game, they kind of just kind of looked at that. Hey, we are restricted a little bit by the screen real estate here, and how can we revamp the gameplay a little bit? To fit that format, because I find that these games, or with Wario Land, I guess with both of them, but I guess kind of start with Wario Land, because I know you think played all the way through this.
I did. I beat Wario Land.
And that is no joke, because I will say I had a little bit of a panic attack earlier, because before I was playing Bonito Days, I was playing this, and I'm in the third world right now. I think I've beaten maybe 15, 20 levels.
Nice. Oh, that's good.
I don't know, because it seems like I almost skipped, because every course, it's like they have a course number, like course number 1, course number 2, and it seems like after the second world, like the tea kettle world, I like skipped some levels. It seemed like there was maybe even like a secret path on the overworld I could maybe go down. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But all I know is I got a game over, and it took me to the title screen, and I had a panic attack. And I am playing on an emulator, but I hadn't done any save states yet.
Oh.
And I was like, oh no. Oh no, but thankfully I was like, oh no, there is that opening screen with like the save.
Yeah.
Like you do have some save files and everything, and I actually love that opening screen.
Me too.
It's very, very similar to the Super Mario Land 2, but like where you kind of like have the 3 pipes you can go down, and it's just a little interactive pick your save file screen.
Yep. But there's so much character there.
In every aspect of this game, like every facial expression that Wario makes, every facial expression that the enemies make, even that the blocks make half the time, and the different costumes that Wario wears, and even when Wario's in miniature mode and he's got his little mohawk, and it's like whoever thought of every little detail, and even the way Wario like carries stuff over his head with one hand and whatnot, and he can carry stuff even when the enemies are 3 times his size.
Oh yeah, baby!
Shuck them around the screen, and like just everything about this game just exudes so much personality, especially to be able to pull that off with just the monochrome color palette of the Game Boy is like
limited
beyond
8-bit
impressive
hardware we're talking about. Like it's crazy. Like what they were, and I'll plant a flag. I think this is the best platformer on Game Boy, at least that I've played. Like
it's definitely shaping up to be that way. I mean, it is a huge game. Like there are a ton of best I can tell, there are a shit ton of levels with like all sorts of crowns to collect, like all sorts of secret paths, and like in some fashions, like I know I mentioned Yoshi's Island earlier briefly, like. That's a game where like I get a little bit frustrated with the open-endedness of those levels. Like even though they do tend to lead to like a little secret or a little hidden thing to get all the collectibles, but like with Wario Land, I really feel like it's like, oh man, like this way is like through this door, you go a little bit out of your way, but you might find a checkpoint in the middle of the level.
Right.
Or
it's always worth it to do that generally.
Or you can be like, I'm kind of panicking, like, I need to finish the level with 10 coins to open the door at the end of each level. So like I know I'm kind of cutting it close here, and I'm down to my last hit point. I got my mohawk going, so I need to just go for the end of the level. Like in most cases, I'm trying to find all the secrets, but there have been a couple of times where I'm like, I just need to get to the end of the level. And it really encourages replayability, and I think that like the only thing that could really help a ton is like having the like in Super Mario World where you can clearly tell like, oh, this level's red, so it has 2 exits, or like I know I still need to get the crown, for example. I don't know if every level in Wario Land has a crown, but there's definitely like some of the levels have those like hidden doors.
So, because they show that grid at the end of the levels with like the treasure you can collect, and I feel like there was only like maybe 20-25 tops of those like treasure spots.
Yeah, it uses the letters of the alphabet, and I don't think it goes through the entire alphabet. So it's definitely under 25 or whatever. So like it's not every level that has one of those secret treasures, and generally they're pretty well hidden. I think I went through the game and I want to say I only got like 6-7 treasures. Like, and that was with like, oh, I died, so let me turn off the Game Boy and turn it back on so I can retry this level and then get the treasure because I know where it is, and like that was doing that sort of stuff with my, like I played on Game Boy Advance primarily to like play through this, and that's kind of how I did it. And like early on falling into a lot of pits too. Until I got used to like that like shoulder bash mechanic, which feels awesome. Oh, it's so good. It's so satisfying.
It is.
To shoulder check enemies, and like, like the only thing that I keep forgetting that you can't do it when you're small Wario. So like I'll like, because you'll take damage and then like turn into mini Mario or mini Wario, and then you're panicking like trying to shoulder bash again, and you're like, no, I can't do it.
Yep. You can only jump on the dudes and flip them upside down, and then grab them with your muscly arm and throw them at other guys that that's the only thing you can do as little baby Wario.
Yeah.
Or pull out
that's
10 coins and throw your coins, which I rarely ever did because, coins are like one of the real things you want to do is get as many coins and treasure collected throughout the game to get, a quote unquote good ending, basically.
Interesting. I was wondering how that, because I really love that like stat screen and how it keeps track and how it like, for example, like in the Mario games, because your coins like kind of just keep rolling over each stage, you really just get to a point usually where you've like racked up so many 1-ups.
Yep.
That it doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, in the game over I got in this game, it actually didn't it didn't reset any of my progress. I was able to pick up right from the level I was on. I was like, oh, is it going to go back to the last like boss I beat or the last like kind of main stage? But it let me pick up actually right where I left off.
Yep.
But I just find that like, shoot, I sort of lost my train of thought there.
Well, like there's a couple of things there. Like you don't get lives through coins like the other Mario Land games is through those hearts.
That's right. That's right.
Coins is just, a matter of getting like a good ending, essentially. Or obviously, like you could use the 10 coins at a checkpoint just because some of those levels are hard and some of them are like a little bit longer than others. So it's
some of them are like really healthy, really long levels. Yeah,
they are. So I'm like, oh shoot, like I don't want to use 10 coins here, but I'm going to because it was like a bitch to get this far. So like, let me do that. Or, so like you get hearts either by defeating enemies or, some of the blocks will release like 10 hearts. And once you get to 100 hearts, like the other Mario Land games, you get a 1-up that way, which is, a bit of a departure. So I kind of like that though. It's a nice little change of pace that way on the formula. And then you had mentioned the bosses. I love the design of the bosses. It's another area where there's so much character and like some really good showcase of like what the Game Boy can do with such limited hardware for sprite art stuff and like effects. Like, man, you could tell this like once again, one of my favorite things, a late era, although with Game Boy, it ended up not being late era, but at the time, a late era release for the system, at 94, which, the game we're going to talk about next also released late era.
Oh, man, what a year.
Pre-Pokemon late era Game Boy, I guess is the way to put that.
Yeah. Before it got its second wind.
Yes. So really, Nintendo was able to like really, show off what this very limited hardware that they could sell for $99 with Tetris back in 1990 or whatever could do. Like, just crazy. Like, I really, really loved this game. I'm a big fan of Wario Land.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying it as well. It just takes like a tiny bit of getting used to like kind of that stiffness of the jump, but it really works more in this game because the jumps are like a little more scripted and a little more like the levels are just laid out in a more puzzly kind of way.
Yes, more like horizontally, sense. I guess. Yeah. Even though there is verticality, especially to later levels, it's like you said at the beginning. It's like it's designed around the limitations of the Game Boy, where it's more horizontally and you're kind of like moving that way with your bash primarily. All of your power-ups kind of have that, like the jet is kind of like a super powered bash that like takes you across the screen, the jet helmet, or like
that can take you to certain areas. Like there was just a secret key, the one secret crown that I found, I was kind of like climbing up a wall essentially by like just bashing into the walls, and then it gives you like that little bit of extra height to get you up to the next like lip and keep kind of climbing up this like cavern in the cave. And found a secret up there. And just like another thing I really like too, and back to kind of like that open-endedness of the level design. I really like how it's like, like for example, in New Super Mario Brothers or something like that, in those games, like you'll clearly see like, oh, I got to get to this stage and have a mini mushroom so I can get in that little mini pipe and sneak through there and find the secret in this level. Where like in this game, in Wario Land, it's more like, hey, here's just a spot that you can only go underneath if you're small Wario right now. But it's not going to be some huge secret. It's probably just going to be like a heart or just another path that you can take. But it's like, it's just broken up in a way that like, hey, this is like just a path that maybe is more appropriate for the state that you're currently in or whatever hat you currently have on.
And even then you could like kind of like crouch as big Wario and try to like squeeze jump your way through sometimes. And a little bit of, sometimes in those you could still kind of squeeze through. But yeah, it's made to be for like little Wario to get in those little routes.
Yeah, and I think, and I could probably, I don't know if we're ready to jump to the next game.
Let's
here,
do it.
But like I can probably, the only gripe that I'll level at both games, and this is really just a gripe to level at the Game Boy, and it's not even a gripe, but just the nature of like, it can be a little bit tough to tell, like, is this enemy going to hurt me? Is this enemy, or is this a pit? Like, I fell into a pit of what I thought was just like, I thought it was just water, but it was like, oh, this is like a little bit darker water. It's like poison water, and I died in that. Or like, there's just little things like they do a pretty good job in the sense of like, oh, this enemy looks spiky, so or like this crab, I know I have to like hit it from behind, or this enemy's carrying a spear, so I know I have to hit it from behind. But in particular,
or do the bash so they flip,
right.
Down.
But I did find this slightly more egregious in the other game we're going to talk about, which is Donkey Kong 94, only in the sense that like I found that like there are a lot of the enemies in this game that you're kind of meant to jump on top of and land on and almost like pick up and throw them, kind of like Wario or like you would in like Mario 2. But then there are other enemies that you can't do that to. You touch them and you die instantaneously. And then sometimes those are the same enemies, like it's like based on what angle you're colliding with them at. And it just can be a little finicky at times. It's nothing egregious or anything, but it's more just a limitation of like the everything being in black and white. And I guess we should mention Donkey Kong 94, I know, has a Super Game Boy enhancement.
Sure does.
It looks sharp. I didn't get to try it myself, but I looked at some screenshots and I was like, whoa, this looks like...
It's awesome.
It looks like an NES game pretty much.
It does, and it's got that arcade cabinet look to it. Because,
on like the outsides.
Because the Super Game Boy, that's one of the things it could really do is say, like, okay, the perfect aspect ratio of a Game Boy game might be less than your full screen TV, but what we can do is put this cool border around it, and, they did that with a lot of, again, late release Game Boy games especially, or notable Game Boy games that might have come out before, like Metroid 2 or whatever. But in Donkey Kong, it was one of the biggest showcases of the Super Game Boy, and that's actually primarily how I played Donkey Kong 94.
Oh, nice.
To talk about it here. It was on my Super Game Boy through the Super NT. And
how did that work? I'm assuming no issues with the running the hardware and stuff.
You have to like enable in the software to like allow audio pass through on the cartridge, but that's just like once it's there, it's like it works perfectly good.
And that's, I'm assuming, just because of the Super Game Boy, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, it worked. It worked great, and it looks great. It looks super sharp.
It's a really good looking game, even in monochrome black and white. It's in the grayscale. It's a really good looking game. Again, it doesn't have quite the like kind of cartoony comic book like expressiveness that Wario Land has, but it still has like a great deal of personality. Like it definitely has a different tone to it than any other Mario platformer. And I guess we should say, and we're certainly not breaking this to you. I'm sure you're aware that Donkey Kong 94 is like kind of a secret hidden Mario game, sort of. But I kind of wasn't aware of it until I heard, I can't even remember what podcast had mentioned it or where I had read about it initially as like, oh, it's kind of like a, the first three stages are regular, like kind of Donkey Kong. And then after that, it kind of opens up. Into like a world map of like still kind of Donkey Kong inspired levels, but that are really heavily also inspired by Mario. And I do think it's kind of interesting that I really feel like a lot of the moveset that Mario has in this game has like in turn really inspired how Mario controls nowadays.
Oh yeah. Like the backflip?
The backflip in terms of like, where you can like pull in the opposite direction and do a backflip. Also I guess Mario can't do this, but you can do like the handstand jump where so if you're holding down when you jump, you kind of jump and then land on your hands, which then in turn, if like DK's throwing barrels down at you, you block them with your feet.
Yeah.
Which is, it doesn't work for everything and every enemy or anything, but there are certain things you can block with that.
Yep.
And then when you jump from that maneuver or from that position, because you can just kind of walk around on your hands infinitely while you're like that. But then when you jump from that position, you jump just as high as you would when you do the backflip. Yep. Or if it's not just as high, it's pretty darn close.
Yep.
But then they also added and they do a great job in like the little kind of like Pac-Man-esque cutscenes between each like world segment. And again, this game has 100 levels in it, which is mind-blowing to me.
Just nuts.
Because I'm on the 4th world, and I would say all of the worlds except one have had less than 10 levels. So there's got to be at least 10 or 12 worlds or something. And it's kind of a similar setup to this type of like single screen arcade game.
Yep.
There is a little bit of scrolling, either vertically or horizontally, but not much. You're kind of talking like they kind of remind me of like the Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle games, which are what I had on the Game Boy. But
more
this
like
again
it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle platformer at heart. Once you get out of the 3 Donkey Kong arcade stages, essentially.
Except for the fact that, like, again, in those Crazy Castle games, like, you really feel like you're kind of locked to a grid in those games. Mm-hmm. Where, like, this game, you have so much fluidity over the control of Mario. Like, even to the degree of, like, when you're falling from a certain height. Like, if you fall from a medium height, you'll fall and, like, just be kind of, like, dazed for a second where you can't move. If you fall from too far, you'll actually die.
Yep.
But if you like push to the side on the D-pad at like just the right time, Mario will do like a somersault roll, and you can save yourself from falling or from getting stunned or from dying.
I love those touches too, because in Donkey Kong Arcade and like the NES port, it's like you fall from any distance and you're just dead.
Even a fall from like a height that would be lower than the height of your jump if you were falling from the ground will kill you sometimes. Like I remember playing Donkey Kong Jr. on the NES Online recently and just being like, as fun as that game is, I'm just like, what the hell? It's like so frustrating. And this
those
this
are games that are fun when you memorize them, basically.
Exactly. And this game like basically takes that concept but lets you kind of finesse your way around. Like I can't tell you how many levels I've like completed. And this game also does a great job of having like, there's 3 hidden or not necessarily hidden, but like 3 placed collectibles on each stage, like an umbrella, a hat, and like a whistle or a brick or something. I don't know. Maybe it's the whistle from Mario 3. It kind of looks like that a little bit. But if you collect all those, you get like a bonus round that can give you extra lives. But like, it's another one of those situations where like I'm tending to try to go for those 3 every time. Yeah. But by the time you get to the key at the end of each level and like then you're making your way back to the door and you're like, just I don't give 2 shits about that hat. Get that thing away from me. Because it is like a mad dash sometimes, especially because that key, like it's, again, you pick it up and carry it kind of Super Mario Brothers 2 style.
Very Super Mario Brothers 2 style.
But it disappears quick.
Yes, it
does. If you don't have it in your hands, and many times you have to throw it. You have to like kind of jump and throw it up to a higher level or whatever. You have to chuck it around and get to it quick. And if you haven't kind of cleared your path or kind of planned out what you're planning on doing, it can be you can put yourself in some pretty precarious situations. But I have found and I don't know if it's just because it has some of the more unique controls. And again, there's one more move that I just got shown right in the last segment. I just got to the jungle which is I think the 4th zone. Mm-hmm. So you can actually do, if you time it just right, you actually can kind of do the triple jump. You can do in the new Mario games. If you do the backflip or like do the jump that like where you hold down and then you land on your hands. And then if you time the next jump perfect and then the next jump after that perfect, you do like an extra high long jump and then like to the point where like even when Mario lands, he actually like stops for a quick second and does like a little gymnast pose, like puts his 2 hands up in the air.
The DNA of future Mario experiences are just all over this game.
It's all there. It's like, the movement and like, being able to kind of like that sense of momentum. It's like they really took weightiness that you feel like in the original Mario game and in Super Mario Brothers that I gripe about all the time. But like by adding those extra ways that you can like, it might take quite a long time to like pull back in the opposite direction and turn around if I'm just turning around. But if I do that backflip, I can turn around on a dime. I might have to worry about how high I'm going to jump and worry about what's above me. But it really gives you such a greater sense of control over Mario.
Yeah.
And again, my only real gripe so far has just been like the uncertainty of like, I feel like I should have been able to touch that thing, and I'm surprised that kills me when I touch it or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a quick, you learn it one time, and I'm not in a situation where like I'm on my last life and I'm about to get a game over, so it's not all that frustrating. But
that, and it has that Donkey Kong arcade DNA in it ultimately, which is pretty unforgiving with things like that.
Yes, so it is hard. Both these games, we should say, are very hard, I think.
Yep, I think so too. And like what made it hard for me in Donkey Kong 94 is that I found out the hard way that the battery inside my cartridge was no longer working.
Oh no.
So I didn't end up because I never have enough time to really spend like a huge amount of game time in one session playing this. I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to play a lot of the first world over and over again. So like, I guess that's an excuse for me to pop open this cartridge and try to desolder a battery and put a new battery in there, I guess, because I really do want to see a lot more of Donkey Kong. I really think it's a great game. But yeah, what we haven't mentioned too is like in talking about the DNA of this game for future games, this launched the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series.
Oh, that's right. You know, John was just mentioning that when we were talking about it in the Discord too, and I kind of forgot about that when he mentioned it, and I forgot about it again now.
Yeah, like it is that. Like this was the first one of that. But like maybe even more impressive that like you just went from Donkey Kong Arcade, which is like one of Nintendo's most popular arcade games, into this whole new console series that's separate from the mainline Mario games, but like really good. And this game in particular, really good.
This game is screaming for a remake, you know, like to see it, it doesn't necessarily have to get the same kind of treatment like visually that Link's Awakening did, but like seeing like how Nintendo went back to like, I don't know. I just feel like this is a game that would be I don't know. I would love to play this game with maybe just a little tightening up on the controls and like just some quality of life type things. Like not even necessarily that the controls aren't tight, but you know what I mean. When you're playing an old retro game and you're just like, I feel like if I was playing it on a game now, I would have hit that jump or whatever. You know, just a little more forgiving,
little quality of life there, and you know, that would be all you'd have to do. I don't even think the sprites look too bad, although you know. If you do remake it, I'd love some like higher bit quality sprites. Why not?
Yeah,
if you could.
Yeah, but again, the soundtracks in both games are probably worth highlighting as well.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. I mean, they're not as memorable as the stuff on like, or even in Super Mario Land, but you know, not as memorable as like the NES soundtracks or Super Nintendo
Still
stuff.
Good,
but
though.
I still find them, nice and peppy, and especially I really like the Donkey Kong 94 soundtrack. I think it really kind of nails like the arcadey, like plinky, sound effects. Like it kind of feels more like you're in an arcade.
Noises happening, which is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and all the just like it's just such a great presentation, everything, and a huge game. I'm really excited I'm not even halfway through.
It's nuts. They like Nintendo went crazy on Donkey Kong 94. Like they didn't have to make it this. All they really had to do was port like Donkey Kong Arcade and like maybe a couple extra features and called it a day and sold it for $30.
Or
but
even just add a link cable
on that
verse mode or something, and they would have been fine. Or even just link cable and you can play the original Mario Bros on here too or something, and they would have been just fine.
No, but they added 100 levels of this whole new gaming experience, this whole new like sub Mario genre thing that they made where it's like puzzly platformer, and then the Super Game Boy stuff on top of that. It's just it's great. It's real
and
good.
It is kind of baffling that it like, you know, we keep calling it Donkey Kong 94, but it technically is just called Donkey Kong. Like you would be none the wiser if you picked this up, especially just knowing what was coming at. You know, Tetris was just Tetris on Game Boy. I guess it probably came out first on Game Boy, but like, like there were many games that were like, this is just a black and white version of the NES game,
Totally.
Like, same thing, maybe even stripped down a little bit. And it was like, whoa, this is like kind of a hybrid Donkey Kong and Mario game. Like it truly married both those IPs very well.
Yep. Took an arcade game from 1981 and remade it into that. Like, just, wow.
Unbelievably impressive.
Yeah. Real good. The Game Boy is awesome, basically.
Yeah. And speaking of awesome and unbelievably impressive, I did want to give a quick shout out to I feel like it's been a minute since I've given some love to Kultisti here on the podcast, and I figured since we were talking about a couple kind of like single screen arcadey games here, and I don't know how long it's been since I last mentioned their games on the podcast, but I know haven't made any videos for their games in a while, and I think we have over like a dozen videos made for their games already. And there were at least 7 new games since I went on and played their games last, and this is over like maybe a 6-month period max.
Unbelievable.
Like just unreal. And again, some of these are Game Jam games that were made, and for example, one of them I played was called Lineoff. And I really like how the simplicity of this game, it was made for the low res jam, so we're talking about the whole game is in like a 64 by 64 bit grid.
Nice.
And you're basically just controlling this 4x4 pixel square from a top-down perspective, and then there are basically lines that sweep from either the top, the bottom, the left or the right of the screen, and things keep picking up. It's obviously just randomly generated, and it's a top-down platformer, and you're literally just jumping over the lines like jump rope, and then there'll be like little dust particles that you have to collect, and it's just like collect as many dust particles as you can before you die. And it's I know I talked about Cog Owl with John. He and I both checked out that one, which was more of like a platformer in the same vein that I think we even got like a palette that we picked out some of the colors for in that one.
Nice.
But yeah, this is kind of more of the same concept. But the one I really wanted to mention was their most recent game called Sulka, which is Sulka. And it's like a little 2D side-scrolling platformer with 20 levels, and you just control this little like bird character, and it's just, it has that really striking Kultisti pixel art style where it's like mostly black backgrounds with these really minimalist little bitsy pixel characters, and then it mostly just has this gravity flipping mechanic that you're not in control of, but they'll just be like these dotted lines that like, otherwise you're kind of like jumping around on these like suspended platforms that if you were to fall down, you'd fall down off the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
But if you fall through this dotted line, it flips the gravity, and then you kind of go, and then you're, jumping on the bottom of the platforms.
That's
and
sweet.
Then it does utilize, and this isn't the first game to do a mechanic like this or anything, but it utilizes like where you do have to take into account to like how like the height that you're jumping from and the sense of momentum. So like towards some of the later levels, you have to kind of like loop through the gravity flip like a few times to like pick up speed to launch yourself like a little bit higher to the tallest platform.
Nice.
So it's just like, I'm just blown away every time. I played another game from them too called it's Envelope spelled backwards. So I just called it Backwards Envelope when I played it because I wasn't going to try to pronounce that. But it's another like, it's just like a little top down like dungeon crawl puzzler that you're basically just get to the end of the dungeon, deliver this letter, and get to the mailbox. And it's
nice.
Probably about the equivalent. I don't know how many rooms it was, but it's about the equivalent of probably about 20 rooms, and just move along. And not all their games are like scripted adventures. Sometimes they're more like puzzly, arcadey experiences, more like Lineoff. But even just the little touches like with Lineoff, like the only instructions in the game, it's like line off, and then it's just like stay offline. And just the little touches of like, even on the opening screen, like line off, like just keeps like the letters just keep scrolling across, and like it does eventually spell offline, and like it just, I mean, it just the way everything about the presentation of these games, and they typically use like a 4:3 aspect ratio.
Yeah.
So it's just like something you don't see a ton of. So coming from playing these Game Boy games, it was like, oh man, this just feels right at home. And
Absolutely.
I mean, like, other than there's some, some flashier particles and some cool effects going on, but these true, like Lineoff could legitimately potentially run on a Game Boy. I mean, it's so low res, but at the same time, the controls feel so responsive and tight. Like it's like within 1 second, you're just like, oh, I get it. Okay, let me just keep playing this. One more run. Oh,
I love it.
And it's the same deal. You unlock new palettes with especially the arcade games. Like just keep getting new score. And that's the only thing you're unlocking is new color schemes. But man, is it so satisfying. And I just can't get enough of their games. And like I said, there's still 4. I played 3 and there's still 4 more that I want to check out that I have yet to play yet.
That's
puzzle
awesome.
Platformers, arcade stuff, you name it. Kultisti's probably done it. So just can't recommend their stuff enough. And yeah, I feel like it felt like it's been a while. So
yeah, it has.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, but I think we can probably wrap up the games talk there this week, unless you got anything else, Randall.
No, that's it. No more video games.
Yeah, for once we're out of video games, guys. Right. But yeah, we'll be back as always, and I don't know exactly when this episode's going to come out, but I think it'll be out before the holidays. So hopefully everyone's having a good holiday and good end of the year and everything here. And if not, hopefully you already had a good end of the year and holiday. Right. But I'm pretty sure this will be out by then. And we'll catch you next week, one way or the other, whether it's this year or next. And until then, we'll catch you next week and take care.
Bye-bye.
I'm like 100% positive this is coming out before then, so I don't know why that happened. I was like panicking. I was like, are we doing the holiday episode before this one? I forget. And I'm pretty positive this one's coming before that, but whatever. In case.
Are there regular episodes in the chamber? One or two?
I think technically this one would come out the week before. I know I crunched the numbers and I told John, like technically, I think this one would mean like, if we recorded the next one, it could be the holiday episode and we'd be like done through the year and then some.
Which I could do. I could do that at the next recording session. Do the holiday. That'd be cool.
I still need to play Hyper Light Drifter, so I need. I'll squeeze it in there. Last second.
Might be time to break that out, Kevin.
Yep, just about time. I almost did this week and I was like, I don't want to force it. Yeah,
I think it's time to force it.
Definitely going to do that, like probably tonight. Boot that up and get started at least like create a save file.